So I guess I can introduce myself first, and then I'll have you introduce yourself, and then we'll dive right into it. Sound good?
Absolutely.
So my name is Genevieve Bartowski. I am a psychologist here in the US, and I've been working in the AI cyber psychology space for, I don't know, it feels like years. It hasn't been quite years. Started off in forensics and took a roundabout way to get here. And earlier this year, I chartered in the British Psychological Society in cyber psychology. So I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. So I'm Carolyn Freeman. I am a cyber psychologist. I'm currently a PhD candidate looking at generative AI in the psychology of generative AI. And Genevieve and I have kind of been in touch a number of times and done a few podcasts together. And we have a habit of talking forever.
Yes.
Because we've got a lot of shared interests. And we're often talking about the difference between the UK and the US, because Genevieve has done or studied in the UK. And I'm based in the UK, so we've often compared notes and talked about that. So this is why we thought it'd be really great to do this.
Yes. And I think it's important too, coming into this, is understanding the mental health landscape and why, like how AI is fitting into it and where those gaps are that's making it easy for AI to fit in, and where AI shouldn't be fitting in, but because there are those gaps, people are utilizing it.
Exactly that. Yeah. And I think one of the things that we spoke about, Genevieve, a little while ago when we started talking about doing this webinar, is that especially in the UK, and I'm sure it's probably the same in the US, and you'll give some information about that. But I've done, my master's was on technology use in the workplace and how technology use is causing burnout and leading to stress and anxiety. So it's one of my passions, is about understanding the impact of technology and then what do you do about it. So I had a look at the 2025 burnout report that the Mental Health UK has just recently launched. And from that, the latest statistics is 1 in 3 adults experience high or extreme levels of pressure or stress, and 1 in 5 experience poor mental health caused by stress. And it seems to be affecting the younger generations more than the older generations. And this is really around workplace stress. So it's the stuff that's going on amongst adults. So there's a real need for help. And just to put that in context, so in 2025, the UK population is just short of 70 million. And 2 million of those UK population was in contact with the NHS mental health service, not in the last 12 months or just so far in 2025, in August 2025 alone. 2 million of the UK's population was in touch with NHS mental health service. So that puts it really into context of how many people are really struggling with stress, anxiety, and depression within the UK. And it's across children as well as adults, and that excludes, well, there's a very small portion of those who have real mental health issues that need some element of immediate care. And then I also had a look also at anxiety and depression, and the NHS have this waiting list goal. And I've heard anecdotally so many people who say there's such a long waiting list just to get a first appointment. So they have to go first to their GP just to be registered that they need to see someone. So getting a GP appointment may take 2 weeks. Then you have to wait to be referred. Then you also have to wait for your first appointment. So what they should be, or the NHS talking therapies, they say should provide timely access to treatment. So 75% is their goal of their first appointment within 6 weeks of referral. So taking into context that this also seeing the GP and waiting for that referral. And then 95% should get their first appointment within 18 weeks of referral. So that doesn't sound very long, but actually that's 4.5 months.
Yes.
So, and we spoke about that kind of if you're stressed, if you're burnt out at work, waiting a week is a long time to get help. To wait 5 months, take into account also the GP appointment plus the referral, it's pretty epic. So it kind of gives a sense of the real big need and
absolutely
in the UK. And so that's just kind of the context of where we're at within a UK environment. And we've got a social services of an NHS, a huge
Mm-hmm.
NHS mental health team who do a marvelous job, but they are so overstretched.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and it's not easy to access treatment here in the US either. It's, like we do have the privatized insurance. And, the private practice that I work at, we're one of the few practices that will take the insurance. And I will say that this year, with some of the things going on, it is taking insurance longer and longer to pay us. And, like we still have to make a living too. Like we're there to take care of people, but at the same time, we also have to be able to support ourselves and run the practice. And there are all these other things behind the scenes that we have to deal with. So it is difficult for people to get appointments. There are a lot of therapists and psychologists who don't deal with insurance companies. So then that becomes very expensive to pay for that out of pocket. And, since I guess it was around like in the 1960s, we had the big move towards the deinstitutionalization and everything was supposed to be moved into community mental health centers. And we do have those. And I have worked in that environment and they are strapped and they are trying to do so much with so little and not enough resources and not enough money. And there's just not enough available. And like you said, one of the downsides of AI is that things are becoming streamlined. But instead of it taking things off people's plates, it's like, okay, well, now you can do more and do it faster.
Yeah.
And the decision fatigue is real.
Yeah. And people are expected to do more and be more
Mhm.
productive. It's like you've got an AI tool, so why aren't you more productive? Because that's what we've been promised, is that you can do things
Mhm.
faster and you can do a lot more stuff. But if someone hasn't got this kind of the skill sets necessarily to be able to use AI
Mhm.
in a really effective, productive way, that takes a lot of training and a lot of time and a lot of
Mhm.
um, kind of hit and miss
Mhm.
in order to get to that point. But also, AI is very limited in what it can do. Generative
Yeah.
AI has its advantages and it has its things it's really
Mhm.
good at, but there's a lot of things it's not really good at, and
Mhm.
maybe it's not good at yet. But then there's this overall expectation, and maybe it's because the big tech entrepreneurs who are pushing generative AI
Mhm.
are talking about artificial general intelligence being cleverer or as clever as
Mhm.
humans. So therefore, we kind of expect it to just produce
Mhm.
what we as humans produce. So you've got this tool,
Right.
why aren't you using it? Why aren't you using it effectively? It must be you.
Mhm.
It's user error. So rather than actually, no, it's the generative AI doesn't have that level of skill set
Mhm.
to be able to help you. So it's really tricky from a user perspective of how do I justify the fact that I'm not more productive?
Mhm.
And then there's a fear of someone's telling me that it's going to make me lose my job at some point.
Right.
So
Yes. So the AI anxiety is real. Yes.
the AI anxiety is real. And and how do I then know that's going to replace me, still
Mhm.
use it, and then go, well, will I be working myself out of the
Mhm.
job? So it's a bit super tricky
It it
place to
it
be in.
is. And these are very real things that we're seeing, that I'm seeing in private practice. And as we talked about too, moving back towards that, there are not enough practitioners. And and I think one of the important things, when you were talking about burnout, is the burnout that practitioners are feeling as well. I took a break from practicing, I think 3-4 years during COVID. I was like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I've had it. I'm gonna go get my MBA and see where that takes me. And I'm glad I did that because I needed that time off. But it is, for practitioners, it is very overwhelming. And, you and I had talked before this, to become a licensed practitioner and to be qualified, how difficult that is and the amount of time and money that goes into it. And then to get into this position and it's like, okay, I'm exhausted. I'm, constantly dealing with all this stuff and yeah,
Yeah.
and then here's
That's
AI.
That's exactly it, and it takes many years of training. So even
Mhm.
as a psychologist, so you get a kind of bachelor's and you become a graduate and go, "Yay, I've done
Mhm.
psychology." But actually, even then, you're not equipped to be a therapist. You
No.
still, if you want to, in the UK, if you want to then become a therapist, you have to go on and study further.
Mhm.
So it could be up to 4 to 7 years of additional study. So that's over and above what you pay for your undergrad. You then also have to pay for either your master's or your chartered status, or you go and do BACP qualification, and then you've got to do hours, and then you've got to get a supervisor, and you've got to pay for all of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So just by the time you're qualified, you're kind of quite exhausted because
Yes.
it's huge amounts of work. And then there's all the emotional labor that goes into it,
Mm-hmm.
and having to kind of deal with your own stuff as well as then working with others.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we're talking about the chart of the protected status of or protected titles of psychologists. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a look at the BPS Society protected titles list because I knew some of them, but I didn't know all of them. So there's 7 protected titles.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't call yourself a psychologist in many areas until you get that higher qualification, until you
Mm-hmm.
get those additional levels. And then you need to be registered with the Health and Care Professional Council. And then
Right.
you have to do continued professional development. But even you can't even call yourself a psychologist until you've got a master's.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, according to the BPS
Right.
standards, you can't. So there's all this training that goes into it. So it's huge amounts of time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to charge a decent amount of money, A, to recoup your costs, but B, as you
Right.
say, to actually live, because it's just living in England, it's so expensive. So in the
Yes.
UK, it is about £130 an hour on average to see
Mm-hmm.
a qualified psychologist. In London, it's more than that. So that, with 12 sessions, that ends up being £1,500 just
Mm-hmm.
to see a psychologist privately. So if you need something happening right
Right.
now, it's just expensive. So,
Mm-hmm.
and who
And
has that kind of
that's only
money?
once a month. And that's only
Yeah,
once a month, which is not like you need more than that.
yeah, exactly. And who has that money when you've got AI coming in and
Mm-hmm.
stealing your job, so your job's not really secure necessarily. And then
Mm-hmm.
B, you've got everything, all the prices going up. So how do you actually reconcile this? It's
Mm-hmm.
a real issue for a lot of people, I think.
It is. And, like we had been talking too about like the protected title. So in the US, psychologist is a protected title. You have to it depends on the state, but you have to at least at bare minimum have a doctorate in psychology to be able to call yourself a psychologist. And there are 5 states where you can actually get criminal charges for calling yourself a psychologist in a professional sense and not being qualified as one. And so for the international folks who don't know what it takes to be even people in America don't realize what it takes to become a psychologist. Is I had 5 years of graduate school. I had a 2,000-hour pre-doc internship. I had 2,000 hours of clinical practicum during school, dissertation. Then I had 1,800 hours postdoc, and I have delayed taking the final exam for the last 10 years, and I'm studying for it now. So I'm what's considered provisional. So all those qualifications, I'm still considered provisional until I sit for that exam. It's not as much for social workers, marriage and family therapists. We have licensed professional counselors. They have their own things that they have to go through. And we have an MFT on staff with us at my private practice. And I love having her because she's so different from what I've trained in. And she does such a good job with like those interpersonal relationships within the families and in couples. And so a lot of people just don't understand when they're looking for treatment as well is like, what kind of therapist do I need?
Exactly.
Who should I go to? Do I need a psychologist? Should I go, or is it good to have an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker who's much more in tune with the resources within the community? So, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
and your AI therapist isn't going to have that.
exactly. And also, yeah, because a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference between what you do and what a
Hmm.
therapist or psychiatrist does? So they often get those terms
Hmm.
mixed up. And there are different kind of levels of pay that or amount of money you have to
Yes.
pay to
Hmm.
each of those. And every single person has slightly different tools and techniques and
Hmm.
specialities. So does it mean that what I have is what you can help me
Right.
with?
Hmm.
And that's something that we have chatted about quite a bit over the last couple of times we've been
Hmm.
on various podcasts.
Yes.
So you would better explain the difference between a psychiatrist and a psychologist.
Yes. The easiest way to remember it. So I went to graduate school. A psychiatrist goes to medical school. A psychiatrist prescribes medications. I don't. In some states, I could get an additional qualification and prescribe psychiatric medications. But what's interesting is brain development, neuroscience, and psychopharmacology is on the licensing exam. So I still have to be aware of all of that. I just don't prescribe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And then from a psychologist to a therapist, to a, it is a therapist.
Mhm, yes,
I've
yeah.
just mixed my words around.
That's
I was
okay.
like, is that right? Yeah, so a psychologist does
Mhm,
a kind of a graduate program within a university, and you can then go on to become a therapist if you kind of
mhm,
go to for the BACP, for example.
mhm,
Or you can just start with the BACP and you work your way up the system.
mhm.
So you can have a background in psychology or psychiatry, but you can then just be a therapist.
Right.
And I say just a therapist, that I don't mean that as a, they aren't good enough. They
Words.
are good. Yes, the words that
Yes.
are coming to me, because they're really good, but they train
Mhm,
in a very specific field
mhm,
or tool set, and they train with very specific way of doing things.
mhm,
And they can be better than psychologists or psychiatrists. It just
mhm.
depends on what kind of therapy you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other big difference in the US with psychologists is that we can do all the psychological testing and testify in court as expert witnesses. So, like, I can do, like, the NGRI assessments and competency assessments and those kind of things.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So I think all of this kind of background information really brings us
mhm.
back to the point that we were talking about, where while we're kind of discussing what we're going to talk about
Yeah,
on this podcast, is
and when
that
we go down rabbit holes, but that's okay.
yes, we go to rabbit holes. So the first thing is how difficult it is to become a psychologist, how much it costs, how
Mhm,
much time and energy and effort it takes. That it's incredibly emotional labor in the
mhm,
whole process. It's not just mental labor; it's emotionally. You get involved
mhm,
in the emotional engagement with your client within the space of therapy,
mhm.
and then you have to put it in a box and put it away, which is also
Yes.
quite tricky to do.
Mhm,
So there's a real skill in that. Um, so there is a massive shortage of qualified psychologists, both in the UK as well as the US,
mhm,
and include psychiatrists and therapists within that box of what I call
mhm,
psychologists. And it takes, well, people who need help don't necessarily know where to go, who to go to,
mhm,
how to find the right help, whether or not the person that they're speaking to has the skills that they need for their particular issue.
mhm.
And even if they do go see them, they come away from it going, we just chatted about a few bits about my childhood and I don't feel like we actually got to the
Mhm,
issue or whatever it is. And if you go to the NHS, they really specialize in cognitive behavior therapy, which is
mhm.
fantastic for them. And it works for
Right.
it's about 45% of people it works for,
Mhm,
but then there's 65% who it doesn't really work for. So
mhm,
then people kind of go, oh, actually, therapy doesn't work for me, but that's not necessarily true. So it's the lack of help, people who can help someone in need, the cost, as well
mhm.
as then who. Who do I speak to and
Right.
how do I actually go start the whole process? So I think this is part of why, because generative AI has that option of I can put something in, I can put in a question and it can come back with an immediate
Mhm,
answer. I read a quote recently that's actually looking at the internet or searching the internet is like similar to taking a drink from a fire hose or a kind of a fire hydrant, is that there's so much information that comes at you.
yes.
So if I do a Google search for I have anxiety, what kind of therapy can I look
Mhm.
for? There's just all these websites that come up and you kind of go, where do I
Right.
look for? What
Yes.
do I do? Then you go to a website and you're going to trawl through this massive information to possibly find what you want or go to somewhere else. So there's a lot of work to get to the
Mhm,
point where you might just have something of an answer. But then you type something into generative AI and something comes up and you go, oh, yes, that
yes.
sort of makes
Mhm,
sense. So there's a lot of really interesting things that you can, or kind of help that you can get from
mhm,
generative AI. So
mhm,
I think for both of us, we're both say there's there is some real value in engaging with a generative AI bot. Going on to ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, or whatever you use, there is a lot of value in that.
mhm.
But
Yes, there's always that big but, and I think it's important to know that it's not the end all be all, and it can give you wrong answers.
it can give you wrong answers. Exactly that. And that's the thing, is that it's a large language model. There's a
Mhm,
predictive text in it. It's about You put in certain words, you put in certain questions, and it'll search the internet.
Hmm.
It'll search all the, or not necessarily the internet, but it'll search the database of information it has been trained on.
Right.
And it will come back with, well, someone asked this generally. So therefore, this is the answer generally that they are given. So
Hmm.
therefore, I'm going to regurgitate that answer, and this is what I'm going to give you. Um, and we spoke previously about, they call it hallucinations, but often, actually, what we need to call it is misinformation
Yes. Yes.
or
Hmm.
disinformation, because that's essentially what it is. And it tells you the information with such confidence or seeming
Hmm.
confidence because it's a statement of what it perceives, predictive
Hmm.
fact, but it's not facts or it's not the truth.
Hmm.
So it can be, it can lead you down a path that's not necessarily the right one.
Yes. Yes. As
Yeah.
we've seen it with, and later on in, there is a woman who's going to be speaking about eating disorders because, eating disorders are treated so differently. And the AI doesn't know if you have an eating disorder and you go on, you're like, hey, I need to lose weight. It's going to tell you exactly what you shouldn't do. It's going to tell you, like, okay, so you want to restrict your calories and you want to exercise more and you want to do this, this, and this, which is, contraindicated for treatment of eating disorders. It does that. And we're also seeing cases of AI feeding into delusional thinking and really building on that and making people's delusional thinking worse. And I'm not sure, and I have so many thoughts on that, like, as a clinician. I'm like, why? Like, how is this, like, what's going on? Is it folie à deux? Like, is it persuasive text like you would see to kind of engage somebody to do something? I mean, is that what it is? I have no idea. I have some thoughts. I have some ideas.
Yeah, I do as well. But one of the thoughts I do have is with big tech, their basic business model is to keep you online as
Mhm.
long as possible, because that's how they
Yes.
make money, is through advertising, through engagement. And even though at the moment generative AI bots or um, algorithms don't
Yeah.
do advertising, what they are doing is competing for investor funding.
Mhm.
So the more people they have online, the more they can kind of say, well, we've got 55 million people who look at our or
Right.
do a search every day, so therefore we're the best. And it's kind of a race to the top for them in terms of
Mhm.
who's the biggest, who's the best. So they're relying a lot on investor funding in order to get to that point. And I don't know at what point ChatGPT went from being, this is the
Mhm.
information, do you want me to do anything else, to giving you those prompts of, would you like me to look for this? Or would you like me to
Mhm.
do that? Perplexity, from when I first started using it, gave you those questions. And do you want me to look
Mhm.
for this? Do you want to know more about that? And ChatGPT started doing that. And what it does then do is engage you, go, oh, yes, that's an interesting question. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
that's very
Yeah.
interesting. Let me find out more. So it kind of steers you down this path. And it's almost like that infinite scroll that Facebook
Mhm.
and the social media brought in to keep you on the platform as long as possible.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what those questions do, is bring you
Yes.
in, keep you there so that you keep reading and you keep engaging and you keep picking on the, yes, that's an easy
Mhm.
question. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, and it's the kind of questions that almost psychologically feed into the questions that a lot of people ask.
Mhm.
Um, but might not be a question you would have necessarily
Thought of.
asked if you didn't have that prompt.
Yes.
And they're trying to almost overfriend you in a way that a groomer might. It's kind of like love bombing you.
It's like it's your classic Rogerian psychology too, because it's that unconditional positive regard. And I'm using AI to study, which has been, I will say, like, it has been a fantastic tool because it's like, all right, I know this connects to this, but I'm not sure how. Can you create me a chart? And it will. And it's, especially being busy, I'm like, this is fantastic rather than me going looking for it. But over the weekend, my friend and I were studying and we were asking questions and we were studying pharmacology. And it's like, now you're thinking like a pharmacologist. Like,
Okay.
which I was like, okay, because I didn't understand something, so I asked the next question, and that was the response, or it's like, "Good question," or "Good idea," or
Yes.
and that positive regard, which, knowing what I know about AI, it's like, great, like, "Oh, it's kinda nice to see that. Yay," it kinda, like, makes me giggle. But for somebody who's lonely or experiencing some sort of anxiety or social disconnection, and getting that can be a slippery slope. And where, people are, going down rabbit holes. I mean, we could go down a whole other way of talking about the emotional connections that people are forming with AI, but I think that that veers a little too far off what
That's
we're
a different,
talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
absolutely. Because I have been thinking a lot about generative AI, and especially the models as they stand, as kind of being
Mhm.
similar to someone who gets engaged with a groomer
Mhm.
in terms of the love bombing and they're wanting to keep you on board and then wanting to get something from you. And it
Mhm.
feels very much like that and it's exactly kind of what I think what you're saying is that if you are someone who has been groomed before, you will often come from a place of I need to be affirmed. I haven't got
Mhm.
that in the offline world. There's something
Yeah.
missing. And someone who's love bombing me is suddenly I'm important. Suddenly I'm valued.
Mhm.
Someone sees me. Someone finally sees me. Someone finally values me. And wow, that's so amazing. And if I've been really hurt by someone else or kind of on the rebound or
Mm.
just needing some
Vulnerable.
social community contact, that's a really positive thing. And I go, oh, phew, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Mhm.
And I'm in it, one in group. I'm not
Mhm.
on the outskirts. I'm not on the outside. I'm part of some element of valued person. And it seems that generative AI is doing that. It's kind of saying, you're okay, you're great, you're in, you're one of
Mm.
us, and giving you those signals of feeling valued and
Mhm.
feeling important and feeling as though you have purpose and meaning.
Mm.
And so I'm starting to see it in that way as that, yeah, you're just trying to groom me, which gives me another perspective on, no, I'm not clicking on that question.
Right, yes, I don't need that answer right now, like, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for
Exactly
your help.
that. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of, for me, is about seeing generative AI as a tool,
Mhm.
not seeing it as this big wow, it's going to change the world and it's going to completely change my life. Like Microsoft Word, like social media can be a tool, but anything we use within business or a personal life from a technology perspective, it's a tool that we should be
Mhm.
using for our advantage. We shouldn't be letting that the tool take over from what we do and taking agency away from us.
Mhm.
So using it as a form of therapy, especially while you're waiting for 2.5,
Mhm.
8.5, 18.5 weeks,
Yes,
just to
yes.
see someone within the NHS, if you haven't had that opportunity to, there's some really great insights to just get you past that point of
Mhm.
feeling despair and desperate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Because you do need that like, you do need hope in therapy. Like, that's, Yalom talks about that in his books. It's like that first thing you need, that installation of hope. And that can bridge that, and one of the issues that we have here in the US is for people who are in mental health crisis, because we didn't even touch on that, is that there is such a lack of beds. So there is an average waiting time of people, and depending on the state and what's available, they can be sitting in the emergency room for 3, 4 days. No treatment, like, just literally, like, just hanging out there. And so, I could see where AI could be potentially helpful in those situations where, again, but it has to, for those situations, there has to be humans watching it and guardrails put in place, but that could certainly help if somebody's sitting in the emergency room, because I did work crisis, and you don't have time to sit there and do therapy with somebody in crisis. It's like medicate, stabilize, find them a bed. Like, that's what you do.
Yeah. And that's the other thing about guardrails, because we've spoken about this before in terms of duty of care.
Mhm.
So, as a therapist, if you have a client who's either potentially going to harm themselves or harm someone else, you have a duty of care to
Yes.
make sure that they are protected, that the community is protected. And if you feel that they are going to harm someone in the community or do something that's illegal, that could really be detrimental, you have a
Mhm.
duty of care as a therapist to break confidence, and that's part of
Mhm.
what you brief them right up front, is that if you get to that point where you're a threat to yourself or others, you have to break
Mhm.
confidence and take steps to stop that
Mhm.
happening. AI doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't.
And that's the real worry when it comes to overuse of generative AI as a
Mhm.
therapy tool, is you don't have that stop valve of saying, actually,
Mhm.
you need some help outside of myself. And it also doesn't refer.
No, it
So,
doesn't. It can give you some resources, it can give you some phone numbers, but it doesn't make a referral. And the other thing too, you talked about the duty of care. We have uh, we have the same thing over here. We also have the duty to warn that if somebody is a threat to others as a therapist. And we also have we're considered mandated reporters if there is child abuse or there is elder abuse. We do have to make those phone calls. And AI doesn't. AI can only, like, if there's a child saying they're being abused, AI is going to, hopefully AI is going to tell that child, like, here's the steps you need to take, but it's not going to breach confidentiality for that.
yeah. Sorry, I just had this thought going through my head when you're talking about AI going, "Oh, you're becoming a good medical person." It's like them going, "Oh, you're becoming a good child abuser."
Yeah.
So
Let's
that
hope
was a really
not.
random thought, but that it kind of it doesn't think, it doesn't have the emotions, it doesn't have empathy,
Mhm.
it doesn't have the ability to recognize when there's a injustice being done or something that could lead to harm.
Mhm.
So, and I think that part of what I'm saying in all this is it's about use generative AI wisely. So yes, there
Mhm.
is a real case, I think, practically for if you're struggling with some form of anxiety or stress,
Mhm.
is to find out what kind of anxiety or stress this is. Help use generative AI to help you unpack some of it,
Mhm.
and also to have a look at what kind of help you do need. So
Right.
maybe it's about saying, well, do I need a therapist? Do I need a psychologist? Do I need a
Mhm.
psychiatrist? What kind of person can I go
Mhm.
to? And also, what kind of tools might I need? So, do I need to go someone who may help me with CBT or
Mhm.
with mindfulness, or is it about actually I might need medication? So you
Right.
kind of become informed and use it as a starting point, and then you can then dive into the research on the internet and go, okay, well, this is the type of stuff I think I need. Well, how can I
Mhm.
inform myself even further on in places that have fact-based information,
Mhm.
not predictive text from large language
Right.
models that's
Mhm.
pre-trained this algorithm to answer in a
Mhm.
specific way, and then take that information, informed information, to someone who is a professional, so
Mhm.
that you can then talk about it in an informed way and give yourself those tools. So there are really interesting things that you can do with generative AI to help you in that gap,
Mhm.
in that process.
Right.
And even going to your assessment with the initial assessment with a practitioner
Mhm.
is helping them understand what you're going through. So saying, these are
Mhm.
my symptoms. I've had a look. I think it might be this. I might be wrong, but this is
Mhm.
kind of this is the research I've done, and this is where I currently think I'm at.
Mhm.
So is this right? So coming with an informed opinion might be really helpful for your therapy.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It looks like we've got a ton of comments, which is great. So I'm just gonna see if there's any questions in here. Oh my goodness, let's see. Let's see. Somebody said AI is a great supervisor tool for preventing therapists to be overwhelmed. I can see it as mental hygiene practice reporting from the field, but I do agree people need to be educated in the basics of how LLM works. Yes, Anina, absolutely. I 100% agree with that because I do use AI. I use AI to be my personal assistant.
Ditto. Yeah.
I I do.
Yeah.
It reminds me of stuff. I'm like, oh, I know I'm gonna forget this. Like, can you tell me this in 3 days? It
Yeah,
does.
exactly. Yeah. And that's the
Mhm.
thing. I use AI all the time because that's what I'm studying. But it's really helpful, and it's real time. It reduces the amount of stuff I have to do. It
Mhm.
condenses a lot of the more tedious things.
Mhm.
Great tool. Great tool.
Oh, absolutely.
But bad master.
Yes. This is an interesting one. So, this person, Bear, says, as a former somatic therapist and person with autism in my own personal therapy, I see relational AI as a type of assistance device. With aphantasia and SDAM, AI has become crucial for my journaling and executive planning in my daily life.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Bear. That's
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and my friend Patricia, who's in here with us, Dr. Reese, she says, "Thank you for mentioning misinformation. I was running some prompts to practice rubric building for a common LLM recommended by recommended therapists, adding safety measure of having neighbors hold medications for clients with suicidal ideation." That sounds very, yeah, I wouldn't agree with that, but yeah, it's Yeah, hey, I've got suicidal ideation. Let me run to my neighbor. That's kind of so it does have misinformation and doesn't always give the best advice. Okay.
Yeah,
See if we have anything else. Let's see. Um, this Rube makes a good point that even the most guardrail tools can be misused, misinterpreted, or go from safe to risky under certain conditions.
agree.
Absolutely. 100%. I have no notes on that. And you might know this. I'm not familiar with this, but Victoria asks, what do you think about Jack Clark, co-founder and head of policy at I can't even speak this
Anthropic.
morning, Anthropic, talking about AI not just as a tool and how we should take it seriously that we are dealing with a real and mysterious creature, not a simple and predictable machine. Oh, I'd love your thoughts on this, Carolyn.
So I haven't actually seen that. I haven't read that but my personal take on AI. So the big tech have this dream. It's kind of a bit of a religion for them, is that
Mhm.
they're trying to create artificial general intelligence. And they've been wanting to do this for a very long time. So they see generative AI as a stepping stone towards artificial general intelligence. And that's basically getting it to the point that we become synonymous and
Mhm.
we become interchangeable with artificial intelligence or with robots
Mhm.
and Elon Musk has, I mean, there's a lot of projects around integrating with technology. And Elon Musk
Mhm.
has his Neuralink where you kind of plug this thing into your brain and it kind of wires together with your neurons. Um, my personal take from it, from a cyber psychology perspective, is that our biological neurons, our biology is incompatible with
Mhm.
one and zeros, which is the basic
Yes.
foundational building blocks of technology. We are not compatible with a wire or
Mhm.
with anything. And in my head, my very simplistic brain says you can't mix a cat and a dog. They have very similar um,
Mhm.
proteins, but you cannot mix them. And that's from a biological level. So, how do they expect us to be able to biologically integrate with ones and
Mhm.
zeros? And general intelligence, they talk about intelligence, and it's actually not intelligent. It's a regurgitation machine, it's an algorithm. It's a
Mhm.
very well put together algorithm that takes a lot of human sentences, a lot of human thought, a lot of human words, scans it, and then regurgitates it. It's almost
Mhm.
autistic. It's
Mhm.
just absorbs and regurgitates. That's all it does. For their big leap it's like it's jumping the canyon, or
Mhm.
what is that term about jumping the crocodile or something? But they're
Oh,
taking
jumping the
this
shark.
jumping the shark. There we go. I knew it was something that could hurt you. So, and that wasn't water. So it's kind of taking this leap from, oh, this is really, it um, gives you words, it gives you sentences, it gives you thinking that
Mhm.
sounds human, that behaves like a human, but it actually is not, and it never will be. So
Right.
my take on is it artificial intelligence will never replace us as humans. It will make our job more productive. It may reduce the number of people who work in the office environment. So
Mhm.
computers and Microsoft Word reduces the typing pool. It's what
Mhm.
happens. This is going to reduce certain a number of office workers. It's not going to decimate the working population the way that
Mhm.
they think it was. And if you see the leap from GPT-4 to GPT-5, it was so minimal,
Mhm.
and they were kind of going, "Oh, it's going to be amazing," and it was so minimal that it was almost embarrassing. And they tried to kind of reverse engineer and
Mhm.
shoehorn some of the GPT-4 back into GPT-5. So for them to go from that to artificial general intelligence is completely unrealistic. It's biologically impossible.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's ever going to happen. It's
Mhm.
there. And but the thing is that if you if you kind of had to say to your investors who are investing like billions of dollars into your business, oh, it's just like a good assistant.
Mhm.
They're not going to put much money into it. But if you can tell them, oh, it's going to be artificial general intelligence, they're going to pour money into it.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. And
Mhm.
being an ex-marketer, yeah, There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. You can really spin stuff to make it sound amazing, but doesn't mean it's going to actually happen. And I don't think that's going to actually happen. That's my take on it.
I can't even add to that. No, because I think just simply it cannot ever understand the nuance of being human and the human
But it can't
experience.
understand. I think that's the key word. It cannot understand.
Right. Yes. It can't know what it will never know what it's like to truly experience grief or to truly experience joy or to I don't know, to run a marathon for the first time or to reach these goals and these
Yeah.
things that are, or to fully love somebody or, what it's like to snuggle your dog or,
Yeah. But that even from an engaging with it from a therapy perspective, it doesn't understand. It doesn't have empathy. There is
Mhm.
not that option. It regurgitates what you think you need to know, what
Mhm.
it thinks, what it has been trained to regurgitate. It doesn't think. It regurgitates. So it
Mhm.
cannot understand. It cannot empathize because it's ones and zeros
Mhm. Yes.
and it's an algorithm. That is all it is. It's Dr. Spock.
Mhm. It is. Looks like we're about out of time.
Yes, we're about out.
So I appreciate everybody who has been in the comments. I'm sorry we didn't get to all the comments and questions. We probably could have spoken for another 3-4 hours about this.
Yeah.
So yes, so we appreciate you guys, and you're welcome to connect with us on LinkedIn. Well, you're welcome to connect with me. I can't speak for Carolyn.
Yep, absolutely. If you've got any other questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. Let's have a chat. Happy to answer any questions I think it's great to have you on board.
Yes.
Fabulous.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.